Well, hey, everybody. This is Chris DeFirio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at La Marzocco and Rattleware. Starting with La Marzocco, you go to their website, lamarzocco.usa.com. You're going to find an incredible range of equipment that suits any kind of a style or need that you have, from very technologically advanced and state-of-the-art machines like the KB90 with the scales in the drip tray, auto flush for keeping the group heads clean, straight in locking portafilters, the works. Then you have things like the Linea Classic and everywhere in between that allow you to find a trustworthy espresso machine for the life of your business. This company, La Marzocco, has been in business for almost 100 years now. Since 1927, they've been making espresso machines by hand in Florence. And so if you're going to start anywhere looking for espresso equipment for your shop that really makes it stable, trustworthy, beautiful, and something that can be consistent, that you can count on, La Marzocco is it. So go to lamarzocco.usa.com, check them out, email them info@lamarzocco.usa.com. Now, also, we are sponsored by Rattleware.com. Rattleware is a company that's been around for decades. They have been behind your favorite shot glasses, pitchers, knock boxes. You might not have even known it, and that's kind of the point. You know, the whole smallwares game is all about trying to create a certain kind of a dependability without being so flashy, but just functional smallwares that just work. That's what Rattleware is all about. So if, and this is, of course, I say if, like it is not you, but we all need smallwares all the time. If you need smallwares, you need to go to rattleware.com, or if you're shopping elsewhere, go and find the Rattleware label and you can depend on that. So again, rattleware.com. Now, today's episode is all about presence. And not Christmas presents, but your presence physically in the cafe space. You know, I've been kind of thinking a lot about the idea of opening a coffee shop or running a coffee shop, managing a coffee shop. Being a leader in the coffee shop means you have to actually be there. And a lot of people that I talk to, and I get questions from folks that are, you know, kind of in this vein of thinking that the ultimate success in being an operator of a coffee bar is to not be working in your coffee bar. Now, to some degree, there is truth to that, where the old Michael Gerber saying from the E-Myth philosophy is you want to be working on your business, not in your business. But in order to know how to work on your business, you need to have worked in, and in certain areas continue to work in your business. And so the idea is, hey, you can't just outsource from the beginning something that is industry standard. What does it mean to run a great coffee shop? Let me talk to an expert. Let me, listen to this show, this podcast. Let me read a book. Let me download or purchase a manual and a business plan. And if I assemble the right stack of technology and insights and facts, I'm going to get a business. Well, the idea is a little more complex than that. You actually are bringing a new thing into being. You need to usher this in, shepherd it in. You're almost like a parent. There are some basic parenting guidelines that you can be given by everybody who knows you when you're about to have a child. When this season of life comes upon you, and I've been there, and maybe you haven't, but trust me, like there's a lot of advice giving that happens. And all of it's well-intentioned and some of it's actually helpful. But in the midst of the actual thing, it is important that you pay attention and develop knowledge of the child, not knowledge about the idea of a child. So it's versus the, if you will. So the specific coffee shop that you have has never existed before. And as a result, you need to be vigilant. In order to be vigilant, you need to be present. And not at the same rate forever and ever. You need to delegate. You need to open up opportunities. You need to shift responsibilities in delegation to management and training and things. The business, if you're paying attention, will tell you what it needs and you respond accordingly. The same way that my son today at 12 years old eats more than he did when he was 4, and my budget is suffering as a result of it. So it's the same thing with a coffee shop. The energy consumption, the needs, and the space needed for that is going to change over time. But if you have downloaded some kind of a evergreen concept of what it means to run a coffee shop that you believe allows you to not be there, to not focus on it, to not watch it and study, and to kind of, I like the word, I'm using it a lot, apprentice yourself to becoming a wise operator, then your presence is necessary. Now, we just got done airing an episode with John Gordon of Silverback Coffee Solutions, and he is talking about lean management, lean concepts and workflows. The lean idea is something that was adopted and you find is made popular by the Toyota production system. Toyota in the 70s especially used this to become a dominant force in the automobile industry. Very fascinating stuff. And of course, a lot of people use the word Kaizen, which is a constant improvement. It is the pursuit of constant improvement. Gemba Kaizen is a Kaizen philosophy of presence, or being there on the floor where the work is happening in order to make the best decision, not just for the company, but for those who actually literally make up the company, the workers, the product, the space. It is all kind of an interconnected entity. And so you waste your presence when you don't realize this, when you just spend your time poring over reports, but you don't spend time on the floor with an attitude of curiosity. The other thing that you can waste time doing is being in the space, but only at very specific times that suit your schedule, but don't give you a fully faceted view of the business. And this might not be physically possible. Let's say you have multiple locations and they operate from early until late. This is where delegated authority comes in, where you have the ability to have representative authority and the values of the company represented in your management, hopefully, in each store. Those people are the ones that you really stay in touch with the most to know what's going on. So their presence becomes a guiding presence, becomes a representation of the values, so somewhat of a centering force. And I've always said it, and it's always going to be true. Authority is only a tool that you have to use for the benefit of other people. It's not for you. Your authority is not for you. Your power is not for you. It's a tool for others. And that's the case with management, ownership, whatever position you have that has power. And so if you don't want to waste that gift of that authority, the decision-making power that comes with a role like management or leadership, then you've got to be able to plan your presence throughout the week, or you plan the leadership presence. So there shouldn't be this big area of time where the closers never see the owner. They never see the manager. They're always working the close, but they're never seeing anybody. It's like nobody cares. And that's the kind of stuff that bubbles up in your mind. And it starts with the closing shift a lot of times because we dump on them a ton of responsibility. It's a lower tip position, harder manual labor, not as much social interaction. And it's no wonder why a lot of times the issues that come up in the cafe can start there. But that's an issue of your presence being ill distributed across the cafe. So think about your cafe as several cafes. Even if you have one location, you're kind of a multi-site operation because you've got the morning shift. And that morning shift is a unique period of time that represents a kind of a cultural expression that might be different than the closing shift. Even then, you've got the weekend versus the weekday. And even still, you might have a back of house and a front of house. Each one of these represents a unique kind of subculture within the greater culture that requires a certain amount of presence to not only know what's going on, to serve them well, but to be able to solve problems as an act of service, as your primary act of service, guidance, coaching, affirmation. And so my recommendation to you is to start planning your weeks, start using a calendar, look at the various time categories, look at the various subcultures and groupings of your business, the categories that it breaks down into: front of house, back of house, morning, night, busy, slow, weekend, weekday. Do you have yours and your manager's presence available to be the asset to the team, to the customers that you really need to? Or are we just kind of flying in the dark here and, something eventually is going to happen? So let's not waste our presence. Your authority and your leadership is a gift for others that actually comes back and gives to you in your business, because once everybody is cared for within the business, it's easier for them to care for the customer. And that way, the business is way more resilient and way more stable than a lot of cafes, because you will have a well-distributed presence and you will have wisdom developed from that, from your presence on the floor, and you'll know all the facets that make up your cafe. So that's my message for you today. I hope that it's helpful. And as always, we'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.